Right. Yeah, so we saw earlier that European people used to think of the whole of Roman Empire and before that the Greek Empire as their cultural heritage, which was common to all of them. Though that might have not been the exact reality for a very long time, but still, when it came to the European populace, especially the intelligentsia, of the medieval period and the late medieval period in terms of European history. They felt that the Greco-Roman period of cultural efflorescence was something that they could look upon as their golden past. And as they felt that, just give me a second and let's see if the map moves. Yeah. So as they felt that this Greco-Roman heritage is something which can be considered as a common heritage for all European people because it was spread across such a huge area of especially Western and Southern Europe and parts of Eastern Europe as well for a very, very long time. They felt that this is something to which we can go back if we are seeking glory, if we are seeking prestige, if we are seeking legitimacy for our financial power. So this whole period of Greco-Roman empire, the Greco-Roman cultural, especially the soft power part of it, that became a kind of an era to look upon, to look up to as once upon a time something that had been a golden past. With this background of the Greco-Roman cultural importance, which was deep-seated in the minds of the Europeans in the later period, we need to approach the idea of Renaissance, which was a conglomeration, which was a combination of a number of academic as well as a number of, I'm sorry, not academic and administrative. This Renaissance is a period in which one can see a confluence of cultural activities, economic activities, widening of geographical horizons, and such other things. So all these phenomena combined together form the force, the inspiration for the cultural renaissance that is reputed to have come about in Europe between the 14th and the 16th and the 17th centuries. We also saw that there were certain material reasons for this cultural efflorescence. The material reasons being people explored new continents, they knew novel geographies, they knew newer regions, they knew newer cultures, civilizations, and they had earned a lot of money as well. So they had the money, they had the knowledge, and now they were looking for legitimacy. We saw the definitions and we saw the Greco-Roman, the background or the cultural landscape of Greco-Roman civilization, the way in which the arts in terms of sculpture, in terms of painting, in terms of architecture had flowered during the Greco-Roman period. And we saw that Renaissance is a process wherein a rejuvenation of these old practices, these old skills, these old arts and sciences was considered to be a valid activity for gaining legitimacy to your current economic power. So all these activities were happening in Renaissance, and there was a reason for it because some people at least, those who had got enough money, were looking out for legitimacy. These processes were, as I said, these processes included economic forces as well as cultural forces, as well as geographical expeditions that one can call them as cognitive, changes in cognitive geography, or epistemological, if you like, in terms of knowledge. All these forces were combined together. And in the previous lecture, we saw that this can be an idealized picture of a medieval European, especially Western and Northern European village, which was kind of, not entirely, but kind of self-sufficient one, and a huge population was underpaid, and this huge population of laborers, of peasants, or petty workers who didn't own any land, serfs. This class was dependent for their political, their economic, and their religious or ecclesiastical needs on two major agencies or two major institutions. One was the manorial system, that is the feudal lord was their provider for all their material needs, and the church was their provider for all their spiritual needs. This changed slowly with the voyages that were happening, with the various different activities or various different professions that came in, the professions that newly emerged during the 14th and the 15th centuries, with the voyages especially that were happening. One. Secondly, the religious wars, the crusades. Yeah, the crusades that had happened in the previous centuries had kind of opened up the minds of the common peasants who also acted as soldiers in the crusades. So their minds had opened up to newer realities in terms of geography, in terms of religious sects, in terms of ideas, in terms of practices, in terms of technology that was used across different regions of Europe at least. So people had kind of opened their mind's eye when they were exposed to the crusades, one. Secondly, when they were exposed to the various voyages, when these very peasants sent their young boys perhaps, or some of them themselves went on voyages as sailors. So they saw different lands, and wide world kind of opened up its vistas for the European medieval and late medieval peasantry. This resulted in large-scale migration from the self-contained, so to speak, villages towards port cities. One, the feudal system, as a result, declined because the labor which was available at such a cheap rate, or almost for no payment at all, that labor migrated to the cities, and whatever labor was available in the villages, available in the the manorial system or the feudal region which was under control of the feudal lord, that labor had to be paid handsomely because there was not enough labor to compete. This dealt a very severe kind of a blow to the feudal system, and the economic or financial strength, the might of the feudal lords started waning slowly, which of course also meant that the money that was hoarded by these feudal lords had to find newer ways in order to multiply itself or to increase their wealth. They had to invest money not in agriculture but in different activities, and these were the very people who invested in voyages, who invested in banking, who invested in various different economic activities of this period. So this led to the circulation of money from one hand to another. Instead of money being deposited in the treasuries of the feudal lords, the money started rolling about in the society, and there was growth of commerce that happened. Also, the voyages meant that people they were exposed to different technologies from different regions of the world, and they adapted and adopted certain technologies such as this paper printing, mariner's compass, and gunpowder. All these things, as you know, have their roots in old Chinese civilization. Some techniques have been used in other regions as well, such as South Asia, also Transoxiana, Iran and Iraq region. So some things were locally used, some things were already in use, such as printing, but their technique improved a great deal as a result of this cultural exchange between Europeans and the other different civilizations. And this led to a snowball kind of an effect, or a butterfly kind of an effect, which means that once you have got gunpowder, then if instead of hand-to-hand combat, if you have a gun or if you have a big artillery, then that also means that your feudal manor needs to be protected in a better fashion. So you invest a lot in strengthening of your walls, or in different kinds of architecture, which will kind of sustain ramparts and all those things, which will sustain your wealth, or your whatever you want to protect people from external damage, because artillery is being fired at you. So one thing leads to another. Gunpowder leads to inventions and differences in building technology. Mariner's compass leads to better directed voyages. Printing leads to books, lots of books being printed, and ideas getting exchanged between people. All these things resulted in a cultural upheaval, which was characterized by a rejuvenation of the Greco-Roman cultural facets especially, and this came to be known as Renaissance. And for the scholars and thinkers of the day, it was primarily a time of revival of classical learning and wisdom, that is the Greco-Roman learning and wisdom. How so? This can be seen through a few pictures, which will be shown in the subsequent slides. For us, it's not important that the picture is very colorful, it is very nice, it is very attractive. For us, it is important to know that what is the original subject of the picture and when it is getting painted. So what is the original idea and when this idea is getting consumed by the people, consumed by the artists, also by their audience, the viewers who are looking at the pictures. So this back and forth between the Greco-Roman culture and the medieval 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th centuries culture is very, very relevant for us, because as students of history, it's important for us to think about who are the people who are getting remembered constantly in history. Like, for example, if we are looking at Indian history, you will definitely, or if we are looking at the history of Maharashtra, you will definitely notice that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's history gets remembered over and over and over and over again for certain reasons. He lived in the 17th centuries, but for us in the 20th century, in the 21st century, why is it that so many people want to remember him at such a huge scale? This is a historiographical process. What is it that people want to remember? For example, Satavahanas were the rulers who ruled over this very region where Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj also ruled eventually. They ruled for a few centuries, and their empire was also in the same region. But the Maharashtrians, they like to remember Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's valor, his prowess, his ideas in a much more vibrant way, as against, for example, the Satavahanas. The reason being that Maharashtrians today feel that they can draw a lot of inspiration from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, as against Satavahanas or Vakatakas or any other rulers who ruled here. So it is our choice now in the 20th and the 21st centuries to remember a certain historical person, because we feel that his ideas, his practices, his modus operandi is very relevant. It is very, it gives us inspiration. It's very inspiring for us living in the 21st century. So what do we select for remembering? That is very important. Similarly, here for the European people, who were living in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. What did they choose to remember and what did they choose to forget? This process of commemoration, process of remembering is a very, very important and selective process because it tells you what is it that you have chosen to remember. Here we can see that the picture of Socrates is something which the Europeans, though this picture specifically is from the 18th century, but there were many multiple renderings of the same theme of Socrates drinking the, hemlock, glass of hemlock, poison. So why is it that Socrates and his ideas and his death is considered as a glorious thing to be displayed before the people? That is something that should be a topic of interest for us because we will come to know a lot about the people living in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, the Renaissance period, by looking at what is it that they want to project as their ideal. So if we know their idea, then we know what is it that they think is an ideal situation. Here, do you know what is the story of Socrates? Why was he forced to drink that glass of poison? Anybody knows the story? Why was Socrates asked to drink that poison, hemlock?
Don't know, ma'am.
You don't know?
No.
Okay, he was accused by, you can see the dates when he lived. He lived in the 5th and the 4th centuries before Christ during the Greco-Roman, not Roman really, Greek period, the city-states period. Socrates is somebody who was we know that he was a teacher and he had a lot of influence over the young people in his city-state. And he tried to influence these young people through his ideas, like any teacher does. And he was disliked by the authorities of the city because they felt that Socrates is somebody who is influencing or corrupting, not influencing, corrupting the minds of the young people. Just the way, for example, any leaders today are considered as dangerous if they, so ideas of dissent or ideas of separatism, secession among the minds of the younger generation. Similarly, Socrates was seen as a threat to the authority of the city-state where he was living. And hence, the city masters, the people who were ruling over the city, they gave him a choice. They said, you can either apologize for your behavior of influencing and corrupting the minds of the young people, or you have to drink that poison willingly. This was the punishment. And Socrates, you can see here, raising his hand and being very stoic, being very peaceful, calm, and determined. He drank the hemlock, he drank the poison because he felt that he has not done anything wrong. He felt that it was important for him to stick to his ideas. This whole episode of somebody choosing death over giving up of their principles is something that people from the Renaissance period found inspiring. They felt that this is a man who needs to be remembered. This is a man who needs to be revered. This is a man who needs to be shown in a great, in all his glory, because he is somebody who lived and died for his ideas. Why is it that the people from the Renaissance period are so concerned about individuals, about their assertion of their choices, or teachers talking about irreverent things? Obviously, they felt that they could take inspiration from Socrates and practice something similar in their lives during the Renaissance period, between the 14th and the 17th centuries. So there are parallels, and therefore we choose our inspirations, we choose our role models. You know that from, let's say, Bollywood movies. So 1970s and 80s, there was this period of intense labor unrest in India, And that is the period when Amitabh Bachchan, as the hero, leader of the workers, he becomes a superhero for us in the Bollywood movies like Diwar and Namak Halal, I think, or Haram, Namak Haram, such kinds of movies. So our inspirations, our role models are rooted in our conditions. What we find as inspiring for giving strength to our lives today, we choose those role models. Similarly, the choice of Socrates as a subject of a huge panel of paintings at multiple locations during the Renaissance period tells us that those people felt that it was inspiring to die for your own ideals. It was inspiring to choose death over giving up your ideals. It was inspiring to stick to your ideals, stick to your ideas also, all these things. Hence, the picture per se is not, yes, it's a fantastically beautiful and very vibrant kind of a picture, but the picture itself is not who is the painter and all those things. That's not really material for us. For us, it's important to know that who is given the center stage in terms of his ideas, and that is Socrates, who was found to be inspiring by the Renaissance audiences, viewers. Any doubts about this thing?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Similarly, one can see this as well. Again, the same Greco-Roman subject being dealt with by one of the greatest painters of this Renaissance period. The pictures have been painted on the walls and ceilings of the Vatican. There's a Raphael gallery itself in the Vatican City. As you know, Vatican City is the one of the smallest countries, one of the smallest nation states in the world, and it's a part of Italy, really, a very small city-state, but it is the place where the Pope resides and rules over his, the whole city and the whole religious structure. And for all sorts of Christians, but most importantly, the Catholic Christians, Pope is considered as the supreme religious authority, and hence Vatican is like a center of power for all Christian ideals, and this is where the whole heritage and the legacy of Christian art, architecture can be found on display in the beautiful, beautiful buildings of the Vatican City. So this is a picture on one of the wall ceilings, I think ceilings of the Vatican, and it is called as School of Athens. Picture deals with Athens, that is Greek period of European history, but it is drawn in the 16th century. Again and again, I'm kind of toggling between the two periods in order for you to understand that this is not something that is originally from 2500 years ago. This is something that is a recreation of the ideas done in the 16th century. Because they felt that this is something that is very, very important. This is something that is very inspiring for us. Who are these people? You can see that here the center stage kind of is given to Socrates and Aristotle. Socrates and Aristotle. We'll see the detail as well. But all these other people also here who are sitting and standing and thinking and brooding and arguing, all these people are also different kinds of philosophers. These are thinkers. And I'll give you the detail in the next slide. This picture has been analyzed and analyzed and analyzed. But down here, you can see the numbers and you can see who is who. 3 and 4, Plato and Aristotle. Plato and did I say Socrates earlier? I'm sorry. This is Plato and Aristotle. The earlier one was Socrates. I'm sorry. So you have Plato and Aristotle here, 3 and 4. But all these other people are also real people, thinkers. Diogenes, then Epicurus, 12 here. Socrates is 19, 19 here, shown in profile. Okay, so what is the relevance of this whole thing? Why is it that people felt that, I mean, Raphael felt that in the 16th century, he should have these guys painted in a huge panel of the Vatican City? Their ideas were considered as relevant. Here, I have just given you the details. These ideas per se are not very, very relevant or important for us here. It's important for us to know that these are the people who were looked upon as ideals by the Renaissance artists. Aristotle gestures to the earth, his hand is downwards, representing his belief in knowledge through empirical observation. So he's saying that knowledge is something that can be found right here, right now, in this world itself. And whereas Plato, who's the senior one, who has that hand over there, up, indicating towards, Plato holds his Timaeus, that is his book here, and gestures to the heavens, representing his belief in the forms. So Plato believes that you can understand the world through abstract forms, and Aristotle says, no, we need to be grounded in our beliefs and observations and things like that. This is just an explanation of the detail, but for us it is important to note that this school of Athens is a beautiful, beautiful picture that is done in the 16th century by Raphael in the Vatican City, representing different philosophical ideas from the Greek period of European history. And he felt that all these people, various different thinkers, they are very important for people to remember and re-remember and commemorate and, just keep them in their minds, so that people will take inspiration from all these grand fellows from the golden period of, so-called golden period of European history. Cicero. He is also one of the great thinkers from the not Greco really, but the Roman period of European history. And he also, here you can see the picture of Cicero, which is painted in a medieval text. So medieval people, the Renaissance period people, felt that it was important to take inspiration from Cicero as well. Here also Plutarch's book, Life of Alexander. That is also something that gets printed in the during the Renaissance period. Here, Roman thinker Sextus Empiricus, his ideas get printed in a very attractive fashion in the 17th century. So who are the people whose ideas are getting rejuvenated? Just the way in case of India, you can see 19th century Indian literature, you will find Gita getting reprinted, you'll find Mahabharata getting reprinted, Vedas getting reprinted, all sorts of high caste, high class texts belonging to the Sanskrit language getting reprinted, because the intelligentsia of the 19th century felt that this was something that was inspiring. Similarly, here during the Renaissance period, you will find these thinkers from the Greco-Roman period getting printed, reprinted, published, so on and so forth, because people felt that it was important to remember them. This again is a picture of the story of Jesus Christ, but the picture is painted in one of the churches of Renaissance Europe. सांगणार मराठीत सांगणार मधुसूदन. Yes. This picture as well, getting Boethius, again a philosopher. basically all these ancients getting reinterpreted, ancients getting reprinted, republished, and reinvented during the Renaissance period. That is the whole idea. Okay, I'll stop here for the English medium and move to the Marathi medium. Yeah, 12 o'clock. Right? Let's see if I can manage to complete Marathi by 12 o'clock, then I'll come back and resume from here for the English medium. Let me stop the recording.